we need to have a revolution in reporting in Hong Kong. It's a little bit like this rather passive approach we've seen in the past to do no harm. Lots of sustainability reports, not all, but lots of sustainability reports in Hong Kong read like a do no harm booklet. They're not terribly strategic. They report very much on, activities that the company has done rather than demonstrating the link between responsibility and core business, and how responsibility can enhance competitiveness and how it should therefore be linked to to business strategy. I think we need some bolder and braver reports in Hong Kong that talk about not only what the company has done, but perhaps sometimes what the company has not done, and some of the challenges that they often face in an honest way. So I think I'd like to see the quality of reporting increase in Hong Kong. The problem with reports is that reports aren't necessarily backwards looking. I mean, we report on what we have done in the past, and that comes from the annual financial report, and it's also reflected in sustainability reports. But I would like to see some of these reports actually being more future oriented and thinking about some of the challenges that face companies into the future. I mean, what are the future challenges for the industry you're in over the next 10 years? How is your business likely to evolve over the next 10 years? How is your business going to be impacted by the inevitabilities of climate change over the next 10 years? I think reports would become much more interesting, if there was a little bit more future orientation to them. I think some of the reports do manage to do that. I mean, there are reports that talk about the challenges for the next 10 or even 20 years. But sometimes reports are just too backwards looking, I think, and that's not always as interesting to readers as the companies think that might be. We have so much research evidence now that shows that sustainable companies outperform unsustainable companies, and that companies who are responsible and communicate that responsibility effectively can add real value to their business. I mean, it's clear that the evidence is irrefutable. Over 300 academic journal articles show that there is a positive correlation between responsibility and long-term profitability. And I stress it's long-term profitability. Social responsibility is not going to be something that actually increases your profits in the next quarter. It is about having a much longer-term vision, but we know that over several years, business value can be enhanced by responsibility, because it enables you to recruit better staff, it makes those staff more productive, it increases your brand value, it increases your reputational value, enabling you to do business better, and it increases the customer base that you have. The next stage that we're sort of beginning to propose to business is that they work on addressing some of the social needs where they are competent to do so, and do that in a way which creates profits for them. And the only way to do that is sort of look at innovation, to look at how you enhance your competitiveness around new products, new services, new approaches to running your value chain. So I think it's really quite exciting, because what shared value means is that you can actually increase your profits by meeting social needs. And that's a very, very infectious idea for chief executives, because what it means as a chief executive is that if you can meet social needs and make a profit at the same time, then you're going to want to meet more and more social needs, because that's just going to drive profits at scale. And again, I repeat what I've said before, we have examples of companies who've done this. So it is possible. And it's a wonderful way to scale up your responsibility initiatives, because profitability becomes magical, because it naturally scales up addressing social needs. I think the challenge for businesses in Hong Kong is to identify the sort of social and environmental needs that they think they can address. And this is central to the philosophy. You can't deal with everything. The challenge of shared value is to identify the social needs that you can address using the assets and expertise that you have. and using that expertise and those assets to then provide new business opportunities. For example, I think one of the things that businesses in Hong Kong can do is help to address this growing poverty that we have. The divide between rich and poor is something that is increasingly a challenge, and for a rich economy like Hong Kong, it's somewhat of a disgrace that we have so many poor people. So I think one of the things that businesses can do in Hong Kong is look at how they use their assets and expertise to try and deal with that poverty issue. One of the things they can do, for example, is think about their own employment practices. How can I employ more people from those poor areas by rethinking the sorts of skills that I can help them develop, thinking about perhaps some of the groups in Hong Kong that are more marginalized because of their ethnic origins, thinking very carefully about how can I employ people who perhaps don't have traditional educational skills, but then give them those skills. In so many sectors in Hong Kong we have a shortage of staff, and yet we have people who are underemployed and underpaid in many ways. So there's a great shared value opportunity there to help poor people and at the same time decrease the sort of wealth gap and increase those employment opportunities. Look, I think if you're going to be thinking along the lines of the shared value philosophy, one of the things that we need to do is be innovative. And we need to think about new ways of doing business. If you look at most successful shared value initiatives, they've been about innovating around products and services, or innovating along the value chain, or creating brand new clusters of economic value. All of those approaches require you to innovate, and that requires companies to think differently. The idea that you can actually make profit out of meeting a social need is a new idea in many places. But we have tons and tons of examples of how that is possible. Again, I think although shared value needs to be led by the private sector, there is a role for NGOs as well, because I think that NGOs often have some very specific skill sets that the private sector does not have. So for example, if I want to address nutrition issues, I probably want to work with NGOs who understand nutrition and diets, and particularly the diets of poorer people around the issue. If I want to engage with initiatives around water or climate change, then I'm going to need to work with some of the green groups who have those specific skill sets as well. So I think one of the things we talk a lot about within the shared value framework is co-creation, creating initiatives between the private sector and NGOs and government. But I think the private sector must take the lead, and I think that's one of the things that we want to encourage.